What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Read BetSided's college football betting show. I'm your host, Reed Wallach, and shocker, we had another chaotic week in college football for you. What started with Michigan and TCU keeping their unbeaten season alive ended with Caleb Williams thrusting himself into the Heisman Trophy conversation, and in between, we had Ohio State survive a scare in College Park, as well as Tennessee completely ejecting itself from the college football playoff conversation. A lot happened in week 12, and we have a lot to get to. So to do all that, we brought on Alex Gleitman from Buckeye Huddle to talk all things college football playoff, the game, Ohio State versus Michigan, and the Heisman Trophy conversation. You follow Alex on Twitter at Alex Gleitman. That's AlexGleitman. Alex, appreciate you for coming on. Busy week. How's it going?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's certainly exciting. This is the best week of the year if you're an Ohio State or Michigan fan, maybe even just a college football fan in general. I think a lot is hanging on this week from, the college football playoff picture, obviously the Big Ten picture, the Heisman Trophy. So I'm ready. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's jump into it. Let's start with Heisman Trophy, because I think that the Heisman Trophy, the Michigan-Ohio State game, and the college football playoff, they all kind of are starting to blend together into one large conversation. So we'll start with the Heisman Trophy. And like I mentioned, Caleb Williams, 500 all-purpose yards. They beat USC beats UCLA 48-45 in this chaotic back-and-forth affair. Last night, Caleb Williams surpassed CJ Stroud on the odds board to be the favorite for the Heisman Trophy. I think a lot of that was aided by the Athletic straw poll that made Caleb Williams the overwhelming favorite. Basically, everyone put him, not everyone, but majority of the people put him at the top of their board. But just keep in mind, those people also put Drake May neck and neck with CJ Stroud last week for the Heisman Trophy. So Williams, he has the counting stats. He's on a team that controls their own destiny to the college football playoff. So Alex, I'll start with you. CJ Stroud, though, is on the other side. Similar stats on, we'll call it the second best team in the country right now, undefeated. He's been at the top of the board the entire year. Maybe not as flashy as Williams, but do you still think that this is CJ Stroud's award to lose?
I still do. I think, if Ohio State beats Michigan this weekend, I can't imagine that happening without CJ Stroud having a pretty good game.
Yep.
You shouldn't assume anything in today's world of college football, but you assume that Ohio State then gets, probably a fairly easy win against either Iowa or Purdue, pending he plays pretty good in that one too. I think it's his to lose. Now, the next couple weeks should work itself. I think it should work itself out. I guess there's a scenario that USC wins the next 2 weeks. Caleb Williams lights it up. Ohio State wins. Maybe they actually lean on that. Like maybe Mayan Williams and Dallin Hayden, whoever plays at running back, like this past week, maybe they're able to lean on the running game a little bit more when the passing game's not going. And maybe it's very clear. But I think no matter what, when we sit there, on December 4th, I guess, after the conference championship games are played, I think we're going to have a pretty good idea of who's going to win the Heisman Trophy. So I do think it's Stroud's to lose, but I think it probably is much closer than maybe it was before that USC-UCLA game.
Oh, yeah. As UCLA's driving down with a minute left before that Dorian Thompson-Robinson interception, the USC loses that game. This isn't a discussion. Stroud is minus 400 to win the Heisman. He's kind of the last one standing. It feels a lot like last year where, Aiden Hutchinson has that big performance against Ohio State, and all of a sudden he's making a push at Bryce Young for the Heisman. And Bryce Young pulls a rabbit out of his hat. They beat Auburn on the road, and he goes on to win the Heisman Trophy in flying colors. To me, USC has a little bit of pressure here, where they still need to beat a Notre Dame team. We're going to talk about them in a little bit, and then win the Pac-12 championship game against one of Oregon, Utah, Washington. USC loses another game. CJ Stroud will probably be a unanimous Heisman Trophy winner. It won't be a debate. So I think that the door is open for Williams. I still don't know if I'd make him the favorite just yet, but I would think that it's getting close. So we'll see what happens. Let's turn this into the college football playoff conversation, though, because to me, it's shaping up to be Georgia, the winner of Ohio State, Michigan, and then in order of who controls their own destiny, I would say TCU, USC, Clemson, and the loser of Ohio State, Michigan. I don't really see a world where LSU gets in, but I think, there is a world where 2 Big Ten teams get in. I don't think it's very likely, but Alex, any gripes with how I kind of laid out the college football playoff discussion? I think USC and TCU, they control their own destiny outside the Ohio State and Georgia. They control their own destiny to make the college football playoff. I think Clemson on the outside looking in here.
I think we'll find out tonight. I know that the rankings don't necessarily matter because they can change it up however they really want at the last minute. But if they still have LSU ahead of USC, I think that speaks volumes to me. I know no two-loss team has ever won or ever made the college football playoff, but I think if there's a year, it could be this year. I think you're maybe not giving LSU enough credit in the committee's eyes. Like, committee loves the SEC. I just think they love the SEC. LSU's loss were really early in the season. If they come back and they beat Alabama, everyone else they've gone through in the West, and then they come in and beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, I think they're going to have a great argument to get in. Now, do they view a two-loss SEC champion LSU, who's really hasn't lost, since really the beginning part of the season? Do they view that better than a one-loss USC champion of the Pac-12 in a weaker conference? I don't know. But I think tonight's rankings could give us a little glimpse of how they do view that. Because if you're ranking LSU ahead of USC all the way until championship weekend, and then LSU beats Georgia, how are you going to keep LSU out? And then, are you going to maybe say that USC gets in over Georgia? I just don't think if that's Georgia's only loss of the year and it's a close game that you're going to keep them out either. So I do think that the loser of Ohio State, Michigan, there is a scenario for them to get in, but I think it's more likely at this point that it probably lays out like you said it, but that will all work itself out in the next. Like, USC can easily lose to Notre Dame this week.
Mm-hmm.
TCU's can easily lose the Big 12 championship game, right? Like, there's just so many scenarios. It's so hard to say, but I think you laid it out pretty good. I just maybe disagree a little bit with LSU there.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that people are looking at LSU. It's a weird lens because also we're saying like, oh, if LSU wins out, they also need to beat Georgia as 2 touchdown underdogs in the SEC championship game. So we'll see how it goes. But I think that I just don't think there's a scenario where LSU gets in. But I had this conversation last night. Maybe the SEC champion, like, that is just the ultimate crown jewel. You need to put them in. I can't see a world where Georgia doesn't get in, even if they lose. But I think there's a lot of interesting debates. It's becoming a little bit more, if this team wins, because there's only 2 weeks left. If this team wins, they're in. If this team loses, they're out. Like, I think it's very interesting. And I mean, talk about Clemson, a team left for dead a few weeks ago. Now, all of a sudden, right back in the mix after Tennessee loses. The Pac-12 kind of cannibalizes itself. So a lot of interesting things coming up. And like Alex said, we'll see tonight how the committee ranks this, even though they'll probably change their mind as they see fit. So a lot of great stuff there. Let's give out some winners, though. And last week, we gave out other winners, 4-3 week, 52-42-1 against the spread this year on this show. Helped us get over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's been awesome. We've made some money. Let's cap off the regular season with a winning weekend. And we start, of course, with the game, Ohio State, Michigan. Ohio State laying, we'll call it census, 7.5, total of 57 in Columbus. Michigan got off the schneid last year, knocking off their losing streak. There's a lot of questions, Alex, before I turn to you for the Ohio State conversation. Michigan's very banged up at the moment. Blake Corum left in the first half of the game against Illinois that Michigan had to squeak past with a knee injury, came back in, had a carry in the second half, and then he was done. It seems like he's on track to play. You're not going to get much out of Jim Harbaugh, but Donovan Edwards, also a great running back. He's been out, might have a broken hand, some are saying on the message boards. Offensive lineman Trevor Keegan out for the past 2 games. Tight end Luke Schoonmaker, he's been hurt. Eric All, he's been out. So this is a banged up Michigan team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I know Ohio State has their injury questions, but I think Michigan might be in for some trouble here, given how they've been tested this year, how they've been not challenged in the secondary. And this is obviously maybe the best passing offense in the entire country in Ohio State. Alex, I'll turn to you. What's it going to be this year? Is Ohio State getting some revenge here? Are they going to cover the spread? How do you see it going down?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you could talk about the Michigan injuries without talking about the Ohio State injuries. Jackson Smith-Njigga has basically been out the whole year. And he was a Heisman dark horse. Everyone loved this guy's Heisman trophy guy. And he's not stepping on the field on Saturday. I'll say, I know they're being coy about it, but he's not stepping on the field on Saturday. We don't know if Mayan Williams is going to play. We don't know if Travion Henderson's going to play. That leaves true freshman Dallin Hayden as the only scholarship quarterback, because Evan Pryor is also out for the year. Right guard Matt Jones got rolled up on his ankle, which was already sprained last week. Is he going to play? On the defensive side of the ball, they've had cornerback injuries and things like that. So both teams are going to be banged up. I don't want to hear the excuses on either side. This is going to be a really, really good game. And I think it's very simple. Can Ohio State stop the run and force JJ McCarthy to beat them vertically? If they stop the run, can JJ McCarthy beat them vertically? He hasn't proven that he can this year. I think Jim Knowles is going to have some really exotic looks dialed up to kind of throw him off his game when they know that they're in passing situations. They're probably going to have some things installed in the defense to make sure that he's not running wild on them, because there's no way they're going to let themselves get beat like they did last year, where Michigan just bullied them in the trenches. They said, we're going to line up and run the ball down your throats, and they did every single time. I don't see Ohio State losing that way. So Michigan's going to have to find another way to beat them, even if Blake Corum plays, which I'm actually hearing he probably won't, but we'll see.
Ooh,
That's going to be some back and forth probably all week. You're going to hear different things thrown out to keep Ohio State on their toes. But even if he does play it, he's definitely not going to be 100%. So, and neither is Donovan Edwards. But, on Ohio State's side, they've had trouble running the ball themselves. And I think, everyone loves their offense. That they look at the stats. Stats don't always tell the whole story to me, especially with some of the teams that they played on their schedule. I just think if you watch Ohio State, they are clearly they're human. They're human on offense. I think if they had Jackson Smith-Njigba, they would be another level up and they would be almost virtually unstoppable. But I think that a lot of teams are doubling Emeka Egbuka, doubling Marvin Harrison Jr., saying Julian Fleming, go beat us. And I don't know if he's capable to do that on every single series, every single game. And I think Michigan's probably going to have a similar game plan. They're going to throw a lot of pressure at CJ Stroud. Is he identifying where that pressure is coming from, being able to, hit those quick reads and things like that? Those, is Ryan Day dialing it up? And can Ohio State run the ball to keep Michigan on their toes a little bit and not be as aggressive? So those are the big questions I'm looking at. Very long-winded, I know. I'll get to the point here. I just have a feeling Ohio State, as you said, the revenge, like this has been eating at them, for a year now. And it's left a really bad taste in their mouth. I think they're going to come out, and I think they're going to win by, I'll call it at least 10 points in this game.
Yeah, I'm totally with you here. This is, first of all, last week in the look-ahead market, Ohio State dropped inside of a touchdown, 6.5. So I scooped that up. I still like Ohio State in this game. I mean, I make them closer to a 10-point favorite. You made some great points, so I'm just going to kind of compliment your analysis with some numbers I had brought up here. Michigan's outside the top 100 in passes for more than 10 yards, 90th and 20-plus yards. This team has not been a vertical passing attack all season. I mean, JJ McCarthy hasn't looked great pretty much since he was playing that easy non-conference schedule against the UConns and the Hawaiis of the world. So this Ohio State defense with Jim Knowles has improved significantly from last year. I think that they're going to win the push on both sides of the ball with a banged-up Michigan offensive line. And they're going to dare J.J. McCarthy to beat them. And I don't know if J.J. McCarthy has the capability of beating them just yet. This is an inexperienced quarterback going on the road in what to me is really their first elite matchup. I mean, we saw Maryland go into Ann Arbor, pick up almost 400 total yards. And I know you could say, oh, well, Maryland kind of passed all over Ohio State last week in College Park. But Maryland's passing offense is more explosive than Michigan's, just straight up. So, yeah, you can test the Ohio State secondary. I just don't know if Michigan's receivers and quarterback have the ability to test that Ohio State secondary. So you talk about Blake Corum. I mean, word is he might not play. Definitely banged up. Donovan Edwards might be out. I mean, Michigan's going to have to pass to stay in this game. And I think ultimately how this game is going to go, even if CJ Stroud gets put under duress and he struggles early, I think you're going to see Ohio State wear on this Michigan team and eventually break. The dam's going to break in the second half, and Ohio State wins this one going away. I just think this Ohio State team, more physical, in my opinion. This is a different Michigan defense that, again, has been tested in the secondary. And I think Ohio State's going to find some answers. They're going to find some holes deep. And, Marvin Harrison Jr., it won't be Jackson Smith-Njigba probably, but this passing game is still elite. And I think that you're going to see Stroud with a clean pocket, and he's going to pick them apart. So I like Michigan, or I like Ohio State to kind of get some revenge on Michigan. I just haven't seen it with Michigan in a while now. This offense, bit of smoke and mirrors. And if Corum isn't 100%, they're in trouble. So great stuff from Alex there on Ohio State, Michigan. Let's bring up that recap graphic as we are both going to lay it with the Bucks. Alex, more of a lean, but for the sake of the show, we're giving out picks. We're going to take Ohio State minus 7.5. So final week of the regular season. We have some Friday games, not your typical 3-game Friday night slate in the group of 5. We have full complement of games on Thanksgiving week, rivalry week. And Alex, you're looking at North Carolina. We were talking about Drake May earlier. Kind kind of, if you want to win the Heisman, you can't lose as 3-touchdown favorites to Georgia Tech on their backup quarterback. So Drake May, not a Heisman contender like some of us thought, some being me, but they are laying 6.5 against North Carolina State in a rivalry game on Friday. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I love North Carolina. I think they're going to have a bounce back game. NC State, Devin Leary has been out for is out for the year now for a few weeks. I know that they've had a chance to kind of develop a young quarterback of their own. But I think, I like the Tar Heels to bounce back. I think Drake May is probably the number one pick in the 2024 NFL draft at this point. I mean, a lot of things could change because Spencer Rattler was supposed to go number one a few years ago too. But I like the Tar Heels. I think they're my pick of the day on Friday.
All right. Love it. This is honestly, I think, my favorite spot of the week when we're talking, you could put this in the underdog segment, but I'm going to take Missouri +3 against Arkansas. We played Arkansas last week, and they needed that win. One win away from bowl eligibility, playing a sleepy, dreary, tired Ole Miss team. Now, I mean, rumors are Lane Kiffin might leave for Auburn, so maybe that was behind the scenes. They went up 42-6 in that game, just absolutely dump trucked them. So great job by Arkansas. But this is a tough turnaround here. They qualify for a bowl. Missouri needs to win to get into a bowl eligibility, so it's almost the reverse of what Arkansas had last week. And Missouri's been on the wrong side of a lot of tough games this year. Played tough against Georgia, kind of the most competitive we've seen a team be against Georgia this year. They blew a late lead to Kentucky. They fumbled the game away in the end zone against Auburn. So this Missouri team's been a little snake bitten by some bad luck. I think they get an outright win here. I'll take the points, but the defense remains nails. Top 25 in success rate, top 15 in line yards, 12th in tackles for a loss. The defense is fantastic. They also played a bottom 5 tempo in terms of plays per minute. So you're going to see the Mizzou team slow it down, play physical with KJ Jefferson, who's been nursing injuries. And I think at home, catching the 3, sure, I'll take it. I like Missouri to probably win this game outright, but I'll take the points. So there's our 2 Friday picks. UNC -6.5 for Alex, and then I'm going to take the 3 with Missouri in that rivalry game, +3 against Arkansas. Sticking with it, though, we have 2 more underdogs we want to talk about here. So kind of gives away which side we're leaning towards. But we were talking Caleb Williams. We were talking USC. Alex, I'll give it away for you just so I can tee you up here. You're taking Notre Dame with the points. I agree with you, by the way. I'm going to bet the Irish as well. Do you think that the Irish get an outright win here with Marcus Freeman going to Southern California?
I'm going to say yes. I think I'll probably put money on the money line also. I just think USC is maybe a paper tiger to some extent, and I think they should have lost last week. There's probably a couple other games where they were caught. I think if they don't lose this week, I think they could very well lose in the Pac-12 championship game. I think Lincoln Riley's building something. Well, we'll see what happens when they join the Big Ten in a couple years. I think they'll win the Pac-12 next year and make the playoff. I just don't know if this is their year yet. I think they're building toward that. But I like Marcus Freeman's defense to keep Caleb Williams in check. I'm a big fan of fishy spreads, and Notre Dame only being USC only being favored by 5 at home in this rivalry game, when Notre Dame, obviously they've looked good at times, but they've been very shaky at other times. I just think that this is one where Vegas is going to win a lot of money off people taking the Trojans.
Yeah, I haven't bet it yet. +5. It's kind of in that dead number. I want to see if I can maybe get 6, but you want to talk about styles make fights. Notre Dame is going to be able to establish the run here against this USC defense team that is far and away the best team when it comes to turnover margin. I think you're going to see Notre Dame kind of pound the rock and try and get out of there. Notre Dame, I mean, we talk about like one of the weirdest teams of the entire year. Just look at their resume. Beat the teams like UNC, Clemson. They hung tough with Ohio State. They also lost to Marshall and couldn't beat Cal by margin. They're actually 4-0 as an underdog this season against the spread. So this is a team that plays up to their competition quite a bit. I think you're going to see a huge letdown from USC after that crazy game against UCLA, and I think Notre Dame is going to keep this close. I don't trust USC to pull away here, so I lean towards the Irish at 5. I'm going to wait to see if I get a 6, but 4.5. If I see it start to trickle down towards 4, I'll get in on the Irish as well. So Alex likes Notre Dame. I agree. Another one for me, this is kind of a fake game, but Memphis +4.5 against SMU. I make this SMU -1. It's not the best matchup for Memphis, but total opened in the 70s. It's been coming down. Both offenses are so explosive. They both play fast. Memphis 33rd in plays per minute. SMU is 7th. Both defenses around 100th in success rate. So you're going to see points on the board. I think there's a ton of variance here. I think Memphis could easily win this game outright. If you look at kind of the recent play of them, they beat a FCS foe in Northern Arkansas. They beat Tulsa, but then right before that, lost to UCF by 7 in a competitive game. Hung tough with Tulane in a competitive game. ECU in triple overtime, I believe. They had to go 2-point conversions. Had a meltdown against Houston. So this is a Memphis team that has been playing tough against good competition. Meanwhile, SMU kind of been beaten up on the lower level of the AAC. High-powered offense, but we saw last week they got dumped. They just got absolutely demolished by Tulane. I think Memphis is going to be able to run up the score here and keep this within one score. Last team with ball wins. So give me key numbers like 3 and 4. I like the Tigers here. I think Memphis could easily win this game outright. So I'll take the 4.5 there. So there's some underdog picks. And just to recap real quick, Notre Dame +5 for Alex, Memphis +4.5 for me. And we got one more segment here before we get Alex out of here. He's a Big Ten guy, covers the sport. He's got some Rutgers affiliation. Shout out Jersey and the Piscataway fellas. Let's talk some Big Ten real quick. Few games, they're big spreads, but you're looking at the Penn State-Michigan State game. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, it's a large spread, and I normally don't touch this type of stuff, especially in I don't want to call Penn State-Michigan State a rivalry game, but they play it this weekend every year, and it's usually a pretty competitive game, but I think Penn State's playing great ball right now. A lot of confidence coming off a win against 30-0 win against Maryland 2 weeks ago, dominated Rutgers 55-10 in a game that was only a 19-point spread. So, I think Vegas was expecting that to be a little bit closer than it was. They're playing their best football of the season right now. And Michigan State is not. It looked like they were turning a corner a little bit, and I think that they absolutely.
I had Michigan State last week. I thought they were up 17.5. I couldn't believe it.
They were looking unbelievable, and then that collapse just happened against Indiana. They lost in overtime, and I just think that broke that. That's probably broken them completely. Penn State's at home. I think they want to finish this season on a really strong note. Maybe sneak, get into a New Year's Six bowl there. That would obviously be really good for James Franklin and recruiting. So I think Penn State -18. I'm willing to lay that this week.
All right, he's laying it. I'm going the complete opposite way. I'm going to take the 10.5 with Nebraska against Iowa. Iowa is a double-digit favorite since 2005, 27-44-1 against the spread as a Big Ten favorite. 10-24-1. Kirk Ferentz doesn't know how to cover double-digit spreads with this anemic Iowa offense. It's been the same thing for years now. I know Iowa covered by double digits or a double-digit spread against Northwestern earlier this season, but I just don't see that against this Nebraska team that, with Casey Thompson back in the lineup, has been extremely competitive. They were beating Illinois at home. They beat teams like Rutgers and Indiana this season. I know that's, Iowa isn't that bad, but this was a team that was beating Wisconsin in the fourth quarter last week and then blew the game. I think this is an improved Nebraska team under Mickey Joseph. And, Iowa plays at the 20th slowest tempo, and Nebraska's top 40 against explosive runs and pass. I think you could see this game more of a rock fight. I'll grab 10.5 with Nebraska. There's our Big Ten plays for you there. Alex is going to lay the chalk with Penn State -18. I'm going to take Nebraska +10.5 against Iowa. And Alex, I know you got to run real quick, so I want to give you time to do this. Is our best of the rest segment where we just fire out a bunch of bets, any short handicaps you want to make sure the viewers get some winners. We want to finish on a high note. So before you get out of here, any other plays you want to share before we get to my best of the rest and some office hours?
Yeah, I got three other games I'm looking at real quick. Washington State getting 2 points in the Apple Bowl against Washington. I like the Cougars there at home. Oregon State, only 3.5-point underdogs at Oregon. I talked about fishy spreads there. I think Oregon might get caught looking ahead a little bit to next week, coming off the huge, emotional win last week against Utah. I think the Beavers, they're really well coached. I think they're on the right trajectory as a program, and I like them to at least play tough. Maybe they lose, but maybe it's by a field goal. So I'll take the points, not going money line there. The game I really like is Clemson -14.5 against South Carolina. That's a rivalry game. I think Clemson, is looking to make their stamp to the College Football Playoff Committee, trying to prove that despite a terrible ACC basically this year, that they are still playoff worthy, one of the top 4 teams. And then South Carolina, I think they just they gave everything they had last week in that game against Kentucky. So I see a little bit of a letdown for them. It's a 14.5-point spread. I would love for it to go to like 14, 13.5 if possible and grab it there. But I'll take Clemson. I think they're going to win by 21 plus in this game.
Yeah, I am with you on the Oregon State train. I like the running underdog there. But Alex, seriously, really appreciate you coming on. You crushed it. From Buckeye Huddle. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Alex Gleitman. Alex, best of luck this weekend. Go Bucks. Let's get a cover and let's hit some bets. Really appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks, Reed. Appreciate it. Excited for this weekend.
So there's Alex Gleitman. Really appreciate him coming on. I'm going to rattle off a few more picks I have, and then we'll get to some questions in the comments. So I got, what do I got? I got 3 more I want to share. Yeah, 3 more still available. So we'll start Mountain West action. San Diego State plus 1.5. I think money line's good here. I'll probably split the bet on that. But I think that the San Diego State team is starting to turn into something else at the end of the season. Jalen Maiden is a converted safety now at quarterback. And this offense has taken off now. Scored 30 plus against New Mexico and San Jose State, 2 of the better defenses in the Mountain West. And this Air Force team, out to the top 100 explosive pass defense. I think San Diego State can hit on enough chunk plays with Maiden. We've seen that over the last few weeks. And you look at the schedule setup, San Diego State played last Friday. They get an extra day to prep for this Air Force triple option, a team that they have historically shut down. Last year, they only allowed 14 points. They have a fantastic rush defense, allow less than 4 yards per carry, 24th in EP per rush. So I think you're going to see a push up front from the Aztecs defense. I like them as small home underdogs. So give me San Diego State plus 1.5. I think that this is a team being a little underrated now with Maiden under center. This offense has been much, much better. Sticking in the Mountain West, bizarre setup, but Boise State, Utah State. I'm going to go under 52.5. Anything above 51, good with me here. Boise, one of the best defenses in the country. I mean, top 10 across the board. I think they're going to shut down this Utah State offense. Ligas, he's not a player. He's not a difficult quarterback to suss out. We've seen this team has gotten by on turnovers and such. I just don't think that's going to keep up here. And outside of the BYU Boise State game, their totals are regularly in the 40s in Mountain West play. So I think you're going to see with an early start in Idaho, I believe it's a 10 a.m. local kick. I think you're going to see a real sleepy start for both these teams under 52.5. Boise already clinched their Mountain West title spot. Utah State playing for nothing. They qualified for a bowl. I like Boise, Utah State under 52.5. And last one, Iowa State plus 10 against TCU. The Cardiac Horned Frogs did it again. I think they're going to run the table. Why not? But I don't think they're going to cover the spread. Matt Campbell, since getting to Ames, 10-2 against the spread as a double-digit underdog. Remember, just a few weeks ago, they covered a 17-point spread against Texas. They nearly won that game outright, if not for some late game drops and fumbles. I think that this Iowa State team, if you look back at Sonny Dykes' comments when they brought in Joe Gillespie, we love Joe Gillespie, the TCU defensive coordinator. He came in because Sonny Dykes came from the AAC and saw Tulsa's 3-3-5 and couldn't figure it out. And he said, I need this DC. Brought in Joe Gillespie, and now this TCU defense has been solid. Iowa State runs the same exact scheme as Tulsa did and now TCU does, the 3-3-5. It limits explosive plays, and I think you're going to see Iowa State do just that and give Max Duggan and Sonny Dykes' play calling a lot of issues on Saturday. So TCU, Quinton Johnston left the game early last week against Baylor, their star wide receiver, future top 15 pick. Kendra Miller, their star running back, averaging 6.5 yards per carry. He left early with an injury. Davis didn't even start, another wide receiver. So this is a TCU team kind of limping to the finish line. I don't think they're going to be able to win with margin against this Iowa State team. So I'll take the 10 with Iowa State. I know it doesn't seem like they have much to play for, but Matt Campbell is just the absolute nuts in this spot. So I'll take Iowa State plus 10. And yeah, there's a handful of bets there for you. Let's end this one. Let's end the season on a high note. We're hitting like 55%. So let's hope we can finish with a strong season. Let's answer some questions, though, before we get out of here. We got Max Borikov in the comments says, 2-loss SEC champion could be hard to deny. I think in certain permutations, I mean, Alex is much more bullish on this idea than I am. I'm more on the they can't get in. I also, maybe I'm just kind of ruling out LSU to upset Georgia. I don't know. I just think, can you really put them in over a USC team that now will have wins over UCLA, Notre Dame, who now has a really strong resume, actually, and a Pac-12 championship game against maybe Oregon or Utah? I don't know. I think for LSU to get in, other teams will fall in their path. So I think that certain situations will involve losses. Like if everyone wins out, I don't see LSU getting in. So that's my one comment, but we'll see what happens. Some more comments. Ben trickling in here. He says an underdog moneyline round robin, early leans, Mizzou, Miss State, Wazoo, Oregon State, Notre Dame. We spoke about a few of these on the show. So Missouri, I said I think they can win outright. Miss State, I also think is very likely to win. I think that this Lane Kiffin conversation is bizarre. I still think he's going to take the Auburn job. I think he's just kind of trolling because he's very online. But I think Miss State, there's more to play for Mississippi State in this, in my opinion. I know the offense is kind of sputtering in SEC play, but Ole Miss is really kind of falling apart. And maybe this distraction of Lane Kiffin is kind of bearing fruit. Thankfully, they got over their 7.5 wins before all this Auburn talk started. But I like Miss State as well. Wazoo, they could win. I don't see why not. Alex liked them at +2. That's basically saying, are they going to win the game? I'm probably not going to have a play on this game, but I lean towards Wazoo, my Cougs. Oregon State, mentioned that one. I completely agree. 3-point underdogs. I didn't buy that Bo Nix was super healthy. And, this Oregon defense could be trouble. They needed to force a lot of turnovers in that game. Oregon State has been pretty productive with the ball now that they made the change to Gulbranson. So at quarterback, they keep it on the ground. I think they could avoid mistakes and win this one. Rivalry game at home as an underdog, sure. And Notre Dame, Alex and myself went pretty long on that one. So make sure to go rewind that. But I think Notre Dame is very, very live to win this one. USC, outside the top, like 115, bottom 15 in the country in EPA per rush. So I think there's a lot of concerns with, after such a tiring game against UCLA, 48-45, you got Notre Dame coming to town, a team that we've seen play up to competition. I think that, Notre Dame is very live there. So Ben, put it in. It's a winner. I like all those underdog moneyline round robin plays. But yeah, there's our show. Plenty of bets to give out for you. Let's see if we could cap the regular season, a profitable regular season. Let's see if we could cap it with a winner. So big thanks to Alex for coming on. Big thanks to Sean Daly behind the scenes producing this. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Everybody enjoy your weekend with your family. And let's cash some bets. We'll see you next week.